Hello everyone. So here I will introduce some of the acts and legislations in India against crime. So crime against women are broadly classified under two categories. The crime identified under the Indian Penal Code and crime identified under the special laws. So you see that crime identified under the Indian Penal Code are rape, which has been mentioned in section 376 Indian Penal Code, then homicide for dowry deaths and their attempts, which is mentioned in section 302 to 304B IPC, then torture, both mental and physical, which is mentioned in section 498A IPC, and then you see molestation, which is mentioned in section 354 IPC, sexual harassment, which is mentioned in section 509 IPC, and kidnapping and abduction for different purposes, section 363 to 373 IPC. Apart from this, there are also certain crimes identified under the special laws. So reprehensible social practices such as commission of sati, demand dowry, trafficking of women for immoral purposes, etc., are identified as offences punishable under the laws which I have mentioned here. And these are some special social enactment to safeguard women and their interest especially. These are basically Commission of Sati Prevention Act 1987, then Dowry Prohibition Act 1961, then Immoral Traffic Prevention Act 1956, and then Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act 1986. Regarding the identified crimes against women, there is a rape. So rape is a humiliating and most shocking of the crimes against human conscience and morality. This crime occupies a significant place in the penal status of every country. The laws relating to sexual offences do not have adequate provisions for the protection of female victims. Section 375 to 376D of Indian Penal Code deal with the issues of rape. Section 375 defines the statutory offence of rape. It denotes the sexual intercourse with a woman, first, against her will, secondly, without her consent, thirdly, with her consent obtained by putting her in fear of death or hurt, fourthly, with her consent when man knows that he is not her husband, and if consent is given under her misconception of his identity as her husband, fifthly, with her consent when at the time of giving such consent she is under the influence of unsoundness of mind and administration of some substance to make her give consent. Sixthly, with or without consent when she is under 16 years of age. Thus, it could be seen that it is a comprehensive definition by any standards. The explanation of section 375 provides that mere penetration is sufficient to constitute the sexual intercourse necessary to the offence of rape. Therefore, it is not necessary that there must be a complete and total penetration. The fact that in Every rape trial, consent beyond all reasonable doubt is difficult to prove and was highlighted in the famous Mathura trial. Um, and the trial actually triggered the campaign for change in rape laws. Along with these, uh, on recommendation of the 84th report of Law Commission on Rape and Allied Offences, certain amendments were introduced and Section 376A to 76D were introduced in the Indian Penal Code. These changes introduce protection of victim during investigation, a change in the definition to remove the element of consent, then addition of custodial rape as a crime and increase in the punishment of custodial, then gang rape and rape of a pregnant woman. And then we see the concept of marital rape doesn't exist in our country. There is no time limit for the trial. It is a sad reflection on the attitude of indifference of the society towards violation of human dignity. Contrary to the popular belief, rape is almost never perpetrated for sexual gratification. It is an act of violence that happens to be expressed through sexual means. And then we see indecent representation, derogatory depiction of women, whether in print or electronic media, is rampant. In the existing statute, in section 292, 293 and 294 of IPC deal with obscenity. However, the concept of obscenity was based on the 19th century notion which considered anything concerning sex as dirty and obscene. Under this section, the definition of obscenity was vague and the interpretation dependent on the individual judges. Then we see domestic violence, which increase in the numbers of cases relating to violence against women, especially in matrimonial homes. A new terminology was coined, that is domestic violence, and this term distinguishes it from external violence. As this type of violence is increased day-to-day basis, there were pressures and protests against it. Since the police in a majority of cases refused to register cases, there was a demand for a special act under which the offenders could be punished. Generally, complaints can be registered only after an offense has been committed, but in a situation of domestic violence, women needs protection even before the crime is committed, as she apprehends danger to her life from the assaulter on whom she is dependent, and the threat is constant. One of you might have written on domestic violence. I read the article and it was a very good article. I'll not discuss in details about domestic violence. Then dowry, you see, dakshina, originally a token having its origin in the sublime sentiments of a parent and relatives of a bride in a marriage, gained all characteristics of a market transactions where women were killed, burnt, or thrown out of their home. With increase in cases of dowry deaths and bride burning or suicide, it became a unique form of violence experienced by women in India. To curb the evil of dowry, both giving and taking dowry, we have Dowry Prohibition Act 1961 when it was passed. In this act, dowry was defined as any property and valuable security given or agreed to be given directly or indirectly by one party to the marriage to other party. The act of giving and taking of dowry or abetting to take dowry became an offense with the punishment prescribed. The Amending Act of 1986 made the law more stringent, and the period for filing complaint was removed, and the court was given powers to act suo motu or in a complaint by a registered welfare organization. Then you see sati. Sati is also another identified crime. Sati or self-immolation by a widow on the pyre of the dead body of her husband is another act which is violative of human dignity. It is a manifestation of the barbaric attitude of man in violation of the human rights of women. The practice has the social and religious sanction. First legislation against the practice of sati was promulgated in 1827. A plea was made to the Privy Council to repeal the same on the religious grounds. The arguments was countered on the ground that no freedom of religion could go beyond the claims of humanity and justice. Then another crime is female feticide. Girls are discriminated right from the beginning, even before they were born. India, unfortunately, is one of the countries where female feticide is on the rise. This can be one of the most glaring example of violation of human rights and striking at the root of the concept of dignity of women or elimination of discrimination. With the technological advances, the latest scientific techniques are used to abort female fetuses. The technique used is known as amniocentesis, of what was intended to detect genetic or chromosomal disorders became a tool for those who wanted to get rid of a female fetus by determining the sex of the fetus. The Parliament, realizing the consequences and implications of such prenatal diagnostic techniques and its abuse, passed the Prenatal Diagnostic Technique Regulation and Prevention of Misuse Act 1994, which came into effect only in 1996. The Act provided for the regulation of prenatal diagnostic technique and prevent its misuse. It seeks to prohibit misuse of prenatal diagnostic technique for determination of sex, prohibition of advertisement of such technique for the determination of sex, then permission to use such techniques only under certain conditions by registered institutions, and prescribing punishment for violation of the provision of the Act. Apart from this, another crime is immoral traffic. So, prostitution is said to be the oldest among the profession in the world, and is rampant throughout the world. The need for gratification of sexual urge impelled men and women in all ages in every country to exploit the other sex. Though in some countries it was regulated by law and regulations, the prostitution and the accompanying evil of traffic in human beings fall the for the purpose of prostitution are incompatible with the basic human dignity and worth of human beings. So the state, realizing this ban and was made effort to abolish the pernicious system of flesh trade in the larger interest of the society, putting spirit in Article 23 of the Constitution, which prohibits trafficking in human beings, suppression of immoral traffic in Women Act, which was later renamed as Immoral Traffic Prevention Act 1986, in which it was passed. This act realized the fact that prostitution is not confined to females and children only. The purpose of enactment was to inhibit or abolish commercial traffic in women, men and children for the purpose of prostitution as an organized means of living. So what is punishable under the act is sexual exploitation for commercial purpose so as to make a living thereon. However, the practice of prostitution in or in the vicinity of certain places, such as places of public, religious, educational institutions, hospitals, etc., is made punishable. And the act deals with the prostitution not merely as a social problem but a socio-economic problem. Therefore, the provisions of the legislation are more preventive than punitive. Next is sexual harassment at the workplace. With the increase in the number of working women, a new arena has opened in which the violation of human rights and the dignity of women is challenged, that is sexual harassment at work. Each such incident results in the violation of fundamental right of gender equality and right to life and liberty. It is a clear violation of right under Article 14, 15 and 21 of the Constitution. One of the logical consequences of such incident is also the violation of victims' fundamental rights under Article 19(1) to practice any profession or to carry out any occupation, trade and business. Then we have another crime, that is pedophilia. The target here are children. Sexually perverted person in such cases prefer sexual activity with children. Such an activity may be homosexual or heterosexual. It includes seducing, teasing or caressing children. Exhibition and voyeurism are also varieties of these perverse sexual activities in which direct physical control may be secondary and pleasure being almost exclusively due to visual contact, that is seeing and showing off. Next is National Commission for Women. The United Nations Commission on the Status of Women in the 25th report has recommended to all member states the establishment of National Commission or a similar body with a mandate to review, estimate and recommend measures and prioritize to ensure equality between men and women and the full integration of women in all spheres of national life. So, acting on this resolution and on the demands of several women organizations, Government of India set up a committee in 1971 known as the Committee on the Status of Women to evaluate the changes that had taken place in the status of women as a result of constitutional, legal, administrative measures adopted since independence and to examine the impact or the complex process of social change on various sections of women that suggest measures to enable women to play their full and proper role in building up the nation. So, taking up the cases of violation of constitutional violation of constitutional provisions or other laws with the authorities looking into complaints and taking show moto notice of matters relating to deprivation of women's right, non-implementation of laws meant to provide protection to women and also to achieve the objective of equality and development, then non-compliance of policy decisions, then guidelines or instructions which is aimed at instigating hardship, ensuring welfare and providing relief to women, and taking up issues arising out of such matters with authorities, calling for special studies or investigations into specific problems or situations rising out of discrimination and atrocities against women, and identifying the constraint so as to recommend strategies for their removal. Um, Here I haven't mentioned about legal aid, but with reference to dignity of women, it is very important that some legal assistance is given to women who are in need, who want to have redress of their rights through court of law, but their financial position doesn't permit them. In this context, it is necessary to study the concept of legal aid. The Legal Services Authorities Act is one of the most important pieces of social legislation that Parliament adopted in the 40th anniversary year of Indian independence. The Supreme Court didn't lag behind in actualizing the directive principles. Through a series of judicial decisions, the Supreme Court amplified the nature and scope of legal aid to the poor and finally interpreted it as a fundamental right which the state is constitutionally obliged to provide for to every indigent accused of criminal proceeding. Then Supreme Court and High Court even set aside technical rules of procedure allowing invoking the judicial process through letters and telegrams, resorted to the commission system for gathering facts and evidence on matters of public interest, and issued direction in nature of affirmative action, this dispatching meaningful social justice to the poor and the needy. This silent revolution in the judicial process brought about the activist judges, public spirited lawyer, journalist, teacher, and social workers in a new poverty jurisprudence which those associated with the movement expected would be given legislative approval through the act. Now the question is, why the crime against women increase day by day? Why do the atrocities on women continue despite the fact that many laws have been enacted and sea changes have been introduced in the Indian Penal Code, Criminal Procedure Code, and Indian Evidence Act? Number of changes brought about are safety in the burden of proof, enhancement in the punishment, and a wild discretion given to the court. Also, we see certain recommendations to prevent crime against women are given below. Okay, so here I haven't attached to recommendation. I will simply discuss the recommendation. So recommendations like you see establishment of special courts to deal with cases of crime against women. Then it is also important to set up a time limit for the disposal of cases against women. Then you see attempts should be made to prevent delay in investigation of crimes like rape, dowry deaths, etc. There should not be any delay. Capital punishment should be awarded to person committing the offense of rape. And then compensatory board should be established on the lines suggested by the Supreme Court for the victims of rape. Then you see gender sensitization to ensure equality and removing discriminatory practices should be brought about in society. Then demand of dowry should be a ground for obtaining divorce. A person convicted of an offense under Dowry Prohibition Act should face dismissal from service. To curb the practice of dowry rates, there is an urgent need to reinforce the punitive and preventive measures. Then legal literacy is to be given to women to make them aware of their rights. In case of offenses of pedophilia, punishment should be capital. So capital punishment should be given, and the potential abusers and victims should not be left alone. Then the police should avoid seeking conciliation between assailant and victims. Law relating to sexual harassment of women at a workplace should be enacted, and also a mandatory crime cell to function in every police station, and powers to be given to DCP to take show moto case for investigation. So National Commission for Women be given more powers than just be a recommendatory body, and its branches should be established at every district so that violation of fundamental rights of women can be reported, and legal aid should be made available to women in distress, and women NGOs should be involved in all decisions taken affecting women. So that's all for today. If you have any confusions, you can drop me a message in the WhatsApp group. So if there is a requirement of taking live class, I will be announcing it in the WhatsApp group. Thank you so much.